thing. I don't understand. It's the same thing keeps happening. It's the same. It's insanity. It's the definition, psych, of insanity. We keep doing that same shit. They are never, ever, no other group, not even just white folk. Intelligence. This is how war works. Intelligence. You fight with the motherfuckers you roll with.
If I asked you to get a piece of paper and something to write with, and to make a numerical list of all the things that you would be willing to die for, how long is your list?
About 48.
Willing to die for.
About 48.
Willing to die for. How long is your list?
What is the tribal self?
About
The
48.
tribal self is what goes above the immediate acquaintances of the social.
Willing to die
The
for.
family, the people you know, live next door.
You would be willing
I'm
to
talking
die
about
for.
tribal self.
About 48.
I'm talking about those living, those yet unborn, and those who are the
How
ancestors.
long is your list?
So the connection with the ancestors is tied into the tribal self.
About 48.
What does that mean? That means that the tribal self constantly reminds us
Willing to die for.
that we don't have the right
How long is your
to
list?
claim independence.
About 48.
Anyway, today we're going to continue our Black August. We're focusing on Black August, and we're talking about it, building on the ideas, the concepts, and the people surrounding Black August. Last week, and we haven't posted the video yet, so be on the lookout for it. We did a video targeting and focusing our dialogue on George Jackson. This week, we're going to do something similar. We're going to focus on Chairman Fred Hampton, who was the chairman of the Illinois chapter of the Black Panther Party. Now, to start building on Fred Hampton and to talk about Fred, I think it's almost impossible to do so without telling you another thing that occurred in United States history. So I got to give you a little American history to build on and give you some understanding of who Chairman Fred was. I'm going to read a memo, or part of a memo, directly from the then head of the FBI, J. Edgar Hoover. And I know everybody's heard that name, but if you haven't, Willie D said, J.
Edgar Hoover, I wish you wasn't dead, so I can put a bullet in your motherfucking head. Goddamn faggot, motherfucking drag queen. I know you put the hit on Martin Luther King, and Fred Hampton, Malcolm, and the others. You redneck punk motherfucker.
J. Edgar Hoover could possibly be accredited with targeting and getting rid of people like Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Fred Hampton, and many more of the brothers and sisters who he deemed as a threat to the internal security of the United States of America. Let me read this memo right quick, directly from J. Edgar Hoover. It says, COINTELPRO, the counterintelligence program. For maximum effectiveness of the COINTELPRO and to prevent wasted effort, long-range goals are being set. 1, to prevent the coalition of militant Black nationalist groups and unity their strength, a truism that is no less valid for its triteness. An effective coalition of Black nationalist groups might be the first step toward a real Mao in America, the beginning of a true Black revolution. 2, to prevent the rise of a messiah who could unify and electrify the militant Black nationalist movement. Malcolm X might have been such a messiah. He is the martyr of the movement today. Martin Luther King, Stokely Carmichael, and Elijah Muhammad all aspire to this position. Elijah is less of a threat because of his age. King could be a very real contender for this position. Should he abandon his supposed obedience to white liberal doctrines, nonviolence, and embrace Black nationalism? FBI memo, March 4th, 1968. Now, I read that, and before I go into long detail about Chairman Fred and who he was, I'm going to allow Brother War to give us a quick and concise breakdown on what the COINTELPRO was, because I think it's very important to understand the COINTELPRO, the counterintelligence program that was enacted by this country, to understand who Fred was and understand what ended up happening to Fred. So to begin and understand that Chairman Fred was targeted by and eliminated by the COINTELPRO, and every resource that they utilized in that COINTELPRO to target Fred. Before I let Ward give you a breakdown, I'm gonna give you just a little bit more. On August 25th, 1968, this memo was put out to all FBI field officers. The purpose of this new endeavor is to expose, disrupt, misdirect, discredit, or otherwise neutralize, which is nothing more than a euphemism for saying eliminate, kill, a target, or otherwise neutralize the activities of Black nationalists, hate-type groups, their leadership, spokesmen, membership, and supporters. By 1967, the FBI had recruited an army of more than 3,000 informants in the Black communities with Black Pro and the other informant programs. In 1972, the FBI had over 7,000 informants in Black organizations. But for us to go ahead, for us to move forward, I would like to, Brother Ward, if you were to get a listening audience and understanding of what the COINTELPRO was, the counterintelligence program.
So basically, you described it pretty good, but let me just add to that. The thing about the counterintelligence program, and I always like to use the term itself as to a testament of what it was basically meant to counter the intelligence of the community, of the citizens of the United States, from the standpoint of J. Edgar Hoover basically tried to go in and use this as a scare tactic, saying that the communists or the Russians were heavily involved in trying to create and overthrow the United States government and destroy the United States. And so this program was targeting those organizations that supposedly had communist ties to Russia. And with that, he was able to create enough of a fear amongst the United States, as well as just realizing the power that he had, because he had files on everybody that was in office from that standpoint in time, and had and worked his best to try to have skeletons reveal skeletons in everybody's closet, was able to implement his power. So because he deemed it to be a threat, he put forth full effort to destroy and use it through this program called counterintelligence program to basically neutralize anything that he felt was a threat to the standard operation of the United States of America. In saying that, basically this allowed him also to be able to create connections between other enforcement agencies. So the FBI also worked, not only, a lot of people don't know this or look at it from this standpoint, but it was the CIA that was involved, military intelligence was involved, state and local law enforcement were involved in implementing the whatever tactics that was being used to try to neutralize the various targets that J. Edgar Hoover had deemed under the counterintelligence program. One of the things to keep in mind as well, and I tell people this all the time, is that don't just look at the counterintelligence program as a program, but also realize that it is an operation. Whereas the difference between program and operation, it is something that the operation is ongoing. Theoretically, as far as namesake, the counterintelligence program, I believe, was from like 1956 to 71, and that just has to do with when it was busted open. But in essence, realize that any attack that is deemed against the people by the government is just because the name ain't the same, it's still the same concepts. So the counterintelligence as a program name and title may have folded, but the operation itself is alive and well to this day. Another branch that people have to look at in terms of that as an example is Joint Terrorism Task Force, as being a continuation of the COINTELPRO, and this is basically when the FBI was giving investigative powers and technology and merging in intelligence reports and capabilities with local law enforcement and getting them to continue the dirty work of the counterintelligence program by helping with the militarization of local police departments and advanced technology that the FBI used in terms of doing surveillance and operations on targets. Another thing that people have to look at is what's also called the terrorism liaison officer, which is basically an undercover field agent that operates between these various agencies. Because oftentimes, and this even happened in Dallas at one point in time without going too far off track, to where it was realized that there were certain law enforcement police officers who had security clearances that gave them rights that was above even their own police chief in terms of finding out what they was involved in. And this even was busted wide open, and there was an article written about it. And that had to do with the Joint Terrorism Task Force in terms of them receiving orders that went above the jurisdiction of the local department onto a federal level. Another branch and aspect of that has to do with what's called the CIA labs. And the CIA labs is basically a federal laboratory that works with the CIA in terms of putting together their advanced technology. And they have R&Ds that includes advanced materials and manufacturing, artificial intelligence, which is, just now hitting the scene to the mass public, machine learning, data analytics, bioscience and biotechnology. They also deal with blockchain-enabled technologies, and that's what a lot of people don't realize. Virtual and augmented reality comes into play. Now, we're talking about modern-day times here now. High performance and quantum computing falls under that. Wireless technology, telecommunications, robotics, and human interface systems. But the importance about this is, if this is what's going on within the counterintelligence program, and what we have to realize is that looking at the technology and looking at just the capabilities of the counterintelligence program that was going on and launched against us in the 50s and 60s and in the early 70s, then you can just imagine how it's operating today. And the thing about it is the Black Panther Party and other organizations like AIM, the American Indian Movement, was not aware of what was going on in regards to the capabilities and power that the United States government had declared war basically on these various organizations. And as a result of that, assassinations, falsified criminal charges, and everything was on the table. So in essence, a war was declared on the people and on the organizers to make sure that they can be neutralized, separated from ever reaching the capabilities that would actually unite the people to a point of liberation or changing or disrupting the imperialist economy and society. So that in a nutshell, that's how large this operation was. It was way bigger than what a lot of the organizers of that time period realized in terms of its power.
And understanding everything that Ward just said, it's very important for us to understand that most societies, I think it was John Henry Clark that said this, and this is a paraphrase because I can't remember the direct quote, but essentially he said, you got to understand that no people in power teaches the people how to take power from them. And when you understand that quote, to go deeper than that, you have to understand that most people in power do everything necessary that they feel is necessary to maintain power. So societies and governments create these type of devious programs in order to make sure nobody comes behind them and do what they did in order to take power away from them. That's the ultimate goal. Now let's talk about Fred a little bit. And the reason why I wanted to start with COINTELPRO before we talked about Fred is because the COINTELPRO is how they eliminated Fred. But Fred was born August 30th, 1948. We talked about that last week when we built on Black August, and that's why he's a person that we're going to focus on while doing our Black August series. And he was assassinated and murdered by the United States government in December the 4th, 1969. Fred was just 21 years old when he died. And when you think about that, when you really honestly think about that, because it's not hard to believe that a person at that young age could actually develop a political understanding and develop the abilities to organize a group of people effectively. it's not difficult to believe, but it seems a little difficult when you look at today's society, when you look at the modern day society, and what level younger people are on when it comes to their political consciousness and their political awareness. It's nowhere near where it was in those days. He kind of talked about it, I think, when we did the George Jackson series, because when we did the video on George Jackson, because he was breaking down that people could actually walk out of their door and look around their community and know they was oppressed. While now, when you get hit with 1 or 2 black billionaires and these figures to be seen as the ideal standard to be trying to live up to, you think to yourself, ooh, he love to say this, I'm free because I got some red boxes. I'm free because I can purchase this particular bag. You don't bought into this ideal of freedom. So we're not developing 21-year-old Fred Hampton right now. But anyway, to get back to the point, Chairman Fred was the chairman of the Illinois chapter of the Black Panther Party. And he was so effective, and he was seen as a threat to the United States government because he's actually one of the people that came up with the idea for Rainbow Coalition. When you hear that, you think Jesse Jackson. You think, ooh, that's what Jesse Jackson came up with in the 80s. But Fred was doing this Rainbow Coalition thing back in the 60s. And his whole concept or the idea was essentially to go out into the streets and to reorganize street gangs into a more politicized cadres, political organizations. And so he went and he met with the Young Patriots Party, which was a white organization. He met with the Young Lords Party, which was a Puerto Rican organization. He met with black street gangs like the People's Nation and the Folks Nation and many different organizations like this. And if you notice, when you look at the People's Nation and the Folks Nation, Gangster Disciples, Vice Lords, things of this nature, if you look at them, you'll see Black Peace Stones, you'll see that they have more of a political leaning and a greater level of organization. What Fred's idea was for all these different groups who actually control the streets on the street level to actually come together, unite, and move and operate together as a revolutionary. What's the word I'm looking for? We used to use this word all the time, but as a revolutionary united movement, a united front. That was the idea behind his concept of the Rainbow Coalition, and you could probably see why that would be considered a threat, to be able to bring all these forces together. And as I read in the FBI COINTELPRO memo, the second goal of the COINTELPRO was to prevent the rise of a messiah who could unify and electrify the militant black nationalist movement. So that was one of the number one goals, to eliminate that person who had the ability to do that. And they named a few people in that memo: Malcolm X, who we know was killed; Martin Luther King, who we know was killed; Stokely Carmichael, who wasn't killed, but he fled to Africa and changed his name, which is the only reason he probably wasn't eliminated. And Elijah Muhammad, who they say he was not much of a threat because of his age. So when somebody like a Fred Hampton popped up, you would automatically know that he would become an issue because not only of his ability to unite the people, but the things that he was teaching and the things that he was building on. Before I get into, well, let me talk about this. The FBI had an informant to join Chairman Fred's ranks, and this guy, his name was William O'Neill. You can watch the movie Judas and the Black Messiah, or you could do some reading on the subject matter to get a deeper understanding of it. But they had him join, and this guy is the one who essentially drugged Chairman Fred's drink that night, the night that he was killed, so that he couldn't wake up. And he provided the FBI and the Cook County Police Department with the floor plans for the house that Fred was sleeping in, all the way to where his bed was at. And when the police came and did their raid that night, they put over 90-some bullets in the house. I think it was 99 bullets. And only one of the bullets came from the Panthers, which the police claimed that the Panthers opened fire and they had to shoot back in self-defense. The police went into the house, found Chairman Fred wounded in his bed, still hadn't been able to wake up, and they put 2 bullets in his head. and his then fiance, she said that she heard out of her own mouth, she said she heard the police say, well, he's good and dead now. And she knew then that they were talking about Chairman Fred. And William O'Neill was actually given a bonus for his work, for the drugging of Chairman Fred's Kool-Aid and for giving up the floor plans. He was given a bonus. The FBI gave this man a bonus for this great job that he did to help eliminate Chairman Fred. But before we get into deeper details and break down Chairman Fred's philosophy, do anyone, you brothers, want to come in and build on anything you feel like I haven't touched or didn't expound on enough?
Well, I would say, according to documents, Fred Hampton came under the FBI's radar in 1967. But some of the things that I think is real notable about Fred Hampton in regards to how powerful he was is that at age 10, he was already running a community food program. And now this is before 1966, mind you. This is when he was at age 10. I think it was 1961, around that area. I apologize, it was earlier than that if he was age 10. But he was running a food program. And then when he graduated high school, he also had graduated with honors, varsity, and a junior achievement award. And this is in high school. And then he later went on to college and majored in pre-law. And so once he had joined, right even before he joined the Black Panther Party, he was part of the NAACP Leadership Youth Council and was able to organize over 500 youngsters through that program, operating out of the NAACP. So he was on the radar already as a powerful activist in the Illinois area anyway. And so then when he joined the Black Panther Party, it was just, he just sprouted and started becoming real powerful. And keep in mind, in regards to the power of what he was doing, is because he was basically able to galvanize and unify people across the board. And I'm not sure if we're going to touch on that later, so I don't want to jump into it. That's what made him so much of a threat, because he was not able to be isolated in terms of his ability to reach across the various classes and ethnic communities. So I just wanted to add that piece in there.
Indeed. E, I'm gonna ask you a specific question, because I know you'll have a difference of opinion, and sometimes we need a little difference of opinion. Sometimes we need that devil's advocate to come into the conversation. But Fred had this idea of the Rainbow Coalition, and he worked with whites, Puerto Ricans, Mexicans, other Black organizations. He worked with all these different groups. How effective do you think that was, as far as his goals of trying to revolutionize all those different groups on the street level? How effective do you think that was, or do you think that was a good strategy and ideology?
What I think you asked is the effectiveness of essentially the Rainbow Coalition idea of hooking up with non-Africans to affect the overall objective. Yeah. All right. I mean, looking back, hindsight is 20/20. It wasn't effective because shit, we ain't free, so it ain't work. But those types of connections at some point become necessary. But the less united that each of the groups are amongst themselves, the less that group can expect to get what it is they're attempting to achieve. Because somebody else is going to run roughshod. Whoever's got the most effective or the most consistent level of unity is going to have the most effective program. They're going to be able to achieve their goals much more consistently and effectively than those who are not. So back then, it might have been an odd idea. These days, not so much, because there's absolutely zero unity within our neighborhoods, can't even call them communities, because there's no unity. So yeah, I mean, it's not a bad idea in theory, but we're nowhere near, in my opinion, near the level of consciousness as a whole, especially as individuals, which, is the whole. We're nowhere near the level of unity for that type of scenario to do anything but to continue to destroy us. I mean, us hooking up with non-African folks back then, we can look at the effects of it now. We're quick to unite with white folk, especially if we're gay. We'll run into a firestorm of bullets to project some white punk or transgender whatever, because somebody used their wrong pronouns. But then when Florida, somebody gets killed, it's an issue. It's a problem. You're not supposed to unite around race. You're not supposed to unite around being Black and being African. So, the whole rainbow thing, I heard somebody saying, maybe it was college, say ain't no damn black in the rainbow. So, I mean, it didn't work for us because it was neutralized, because it was, effectively, it wasn't even COINTELPRO that destroyed that idea. It was the idea that destroyed it. It was the white liberals that came in and in the 60s were pissed off at white people, just like they are today. They're pissed off at the system, at the patriarchy, the feminism, and it almost the exact same scenario. Feminism blowing up back then in the 60s, just like now. You got sexual freedom blowing up back in the 60s and 70s, just like it is now. Right alongside the push for Black folks blowing up, it's like it is now. So they were all blowing up at the same time. When those white folks either got what they wanted, got enough of what they wanted, or close enough, or just got tired of it, they cut their hair, went and got jobs in corporate America, and are living a good life. You talk about organizations back then, there were white folks who literally set off bombs in U.S. government buildings in this country and are still walking around free today. And the government knows where they are. It's crazy. So for us to unite with somebody that has that kind of power, that's power compared to where we're sitting, is to handicap ourselves and to do exactly what it did. It gave them an opportunity to further infiltrate, whether they were conscious of their infiltration or not. They were still infiltrating it because our struggle is not their struggle. They can opt out, blend in. We cannot do that. Ours is intimate to us. It is a part of us, and that's what it is. So, nice idea, but not appropriate at all for African people.
All right. Appreciate that, Brother E. Brother War, I'm gonna ask you something similar, since you have been doing work. You've been kind of doing some work kind of similar to Chairman Fred to a certain degree. The White Panther Party that you've been working with. I want to know. So, what do you think along those lines? And well, let me say. Now, go ahead, Brother War. Go ahead. I say my mind.
I would say this. I think we have to look at the totality of the operation, and one of the things that is not, and I would even use the Black Panther Party in terms of our operation, as opposed to the historical names and dates that constantly get floated around on the media in terms of what's really going on. I would challenge you and say that COINTELPRO was very instrumental in destroying the Rainbow Coalition. Now, keep in mind, the attacks on other ethnic groups was not nearly as had to go to the level they did with us. They straight up assassinated and killed and imprisoned the black organizers that were powerful, whereas with the white organizers, they was able to threaten for the most part either loved ones or different things like that, and like he did say, a lot of them would blend back in, because the thing about the charismatic appearance and persona that Fred Hampton had, that is what that is what held the glue together for that idea. Because if you allow, especially when we talk about the white liberals from that standpoint, if you allow them to constantly focus on what they typically see around them, then they would not be able to recognize what's going on in terms of the deeper element that Fred Hampton was able to bring to the table. Because of how powerful he was in his speaking and in his ability to draw a connection about what's going on across the world, he was able to galvanize that. That is what they wanted to destroy. Somebody black that is able to unify people that are non-black to the point to where he's able to get them to do his bidding and to do the work of helping to bring down their very system. Now, in saying that, what we have to realize is the goal of the other aspects of the Rainbow Coalition is not the same as it is with the blacks. Our thing is, going back to our 10-point platform, our thing has to be centered around also us establishing the definition of who we are and what we are as a people. That don't apply to the other organizations and other groups. But what does apply to them is going into their community and wreaking havoc, going into their community and doing things to shake things up. These are the kind of operations that go on that don't center around the Black Panther Party, but is operated as a result of the influence of the Black Panther Party. And I would say, if anytime you are able to formulate attacks that don't necessarily have to be carried out by you yourself, then to me that provides more power to you from that standpoint. But
no.
What's that?
No, go ahead. I'm finna disagree, but go ahead.
But what I would say is, keep in mind the glue to the whole overall thing was the influence and the control that the Black Panther Party had in terms of creating and controlling the narrative of why things need to go the way they do. But when you eliminate that and you create a destructive element that destroys the Black Panther Party, all the other forces may fall to the wayside simply because they were galvanized by certain individuals. And that goes right into what we talked about earlier about creating or destroying what we call the Black Messiah that can electrify the masses. Keep in mind, the idea here is getting folks to realize the destruction that they're doing. When you have the ability to be able to actually get some of the white people to really see themselves for what they are in terms of how they're destroying the world, and cause them to go ahead and attack themselves, and also get other organizations and class struggles to come together, then that, to me, that's powerful. And that's why they had to eliminate Fred Hampton to that level. So to me, I think it's a good thing in terms of being able to galvanize that. But I would also say that it is a very more difficult thing to keep together, because it's not that many people that are able to operate on that level. And that in itself is a very hard thing, and takes up a lot of time and a lot of just operation into itself, yet alone going back to what we need to be doing within our own ranks in terms of defining our struggle and how that falls into play.
Well, first of all, the idea that you can get white folks, any of them, to see who it is they really are and what they can do is a pipe dream. It ain't never gonna happen. It's not in them. It's not been in them for 6,000 years. You may have an individual or two who comes along and says, yeah, that's some really fucked up shit. But at the end of the day, they're not going to be willing to lay down their lives for our needs and wants. And even if they did, it would still be a case of us looking at somebody else doing our work for us. It would still be us looking to mommy and daddy, this paternal, maternal mindset that we have to be codependent once again on somebody else to do what we need to do for self. If I'm hearing you correctly, what you're saying is that Fred Hampton's personality was the glue that was able to hold the coalition between the Panther Party and these, I'm gonna just use these white organizations together. Then what I hear you saying is essentially he played the role of a preacher, which means that it was never any unity between the Panther Party and these white organizations anyway. You just had white folk who really liked the way Fred Hampton was talking. It's the same scenario. That's not unity. Being able to rile up some white folks to go into a white neighborhood and blow some shit up or do whatever the hell they're gonna do is not power at all. It's not even pretend power for the Black community, because it's still white folks working on their own agenda. Yeah, you put a little something in their ear, but they're still working on their agenda, an agenda that they can come back from and has no sincere connection to what it is we're attempting to do. So even then, the only reason we had a go of it at that point in time is because we had a particular level of unity within our neighborhoods between Black folks. We were able to at least pose and play the part for a while. Can't do that anymore. Anybody, most of the folks, put it like this, and again, you can't, if you want to look at it like you said, holistically or in totality, all of it, then you have to look at all of it, all of the economic aspects. They're rebelling against the economy that's slapping them around the way it was slapping them around in the 60s. They were pissed off about it. The same scenario. The sexual aspect, the cultural, all of that shit, all of it is almost exactly the same. It's the same damn scenario, and it's crazy to me. The more you look at it, the more it plays itself out that way. Matter of fact, you even got a Kennedy that's running for president. Oh my God, come on. Can we get any more, history repeats itself, supposedly shit. It's happening again. And we've got to learn that there is no working with these people when we have power, and especially when we don't have power, because they have their own agenda that they've always had. They will take and twist anything and use it for their own self until they get tired of it, which is not a coalition. It is not a alliance. It's usury. It's what they fucking do. It's what they've done throughout their history. And so we keep reaching out to them. Most of the folks, especially in California, who are conscious in terms of what's going on in the community and the neighborhoods, and something must be done, blah, blah, blah. I don't say most, but a large and probably growing percentage of them are also on the bandwagon for the LGBTQ community. 9 times out of 10, those same folks are going to be soft or lenient or in some way wanting to be inclusive. There is no Black community to act as a power base in this country. Little bits and pieces, again, ain't knocking those that are actually making a little bit of headway in their own neighborhoods. Bravo, wonderful, hats off. I'm talking generally the country as a whole, the people as a whole. So we can keep repeating these, hello.
We can hear you. Keep going.
We can keep repeating the same damn thing. We can't sit up and talk about folks protesting in the street over Floyd, doing the same thing that they did behind Rodney King, that they did behind, whoever, Yusuf Hawkins. We can't criticize them for doing the same thing and not having learned from history if we're going to keep on doing the same thing and not learning from history. They have never been for us. They will never be for us. And that's just the way it is. And the more we attempt to merge ourselves with them in any way, shape, or form, the more it takes away from our work with our people to do what we need to get done. And I think what was that first thing you said? I wasn't saying that COINTELPRO did nothing to bring down the Rainbow Coalition. My point was that the idea of a coalition with multiple other people, multiple other groups, that idea alone did more damage than COINTELPRO could, because by its very premise, by its very existence, it's counter to self-determination, self-empowerment, because you're using your time and energy to reach out to somebody else. That's the whole premise of the rainbow, is reaching out, as opposed to what we all would agree is the opposite of us reaching in, which is what we're supposed to be pushing our people toward. So don't be trying to misconstrue my words, MSNBC.
Well, let me add this to it, and I think War want to come back. I think War got something.
He ain't got nothing.
I'm gonna add this real quick and then step out the way and And let war say. Now, this is what I believe. If you look at, okay, let's look at Huey P. Newton. Let's look at Fred Hampton. Let's look at Stokely Carmichael. Let's look at some of these brothers and these ideas. You know, the conflict between Stokely and the party was basically that, what he just said. He could be Stokely right now. He could be Stokely. Stokely coming from, I believe, SNCC,
Yeah.
the SNCC organization. And many of the people that came into the party with Stokely came from other organizations like NAACP and the CORE, Congress of Racial Equality. I think his name was, I don't want to say, James Foreman, I believe, came from
Foreman,
CORE.
yeah.
Foreman, yeah. So when we understand this, you had, when the Black Panther Party came on the scene, Black Panther Party for Self-Defense came on the scene, many of the youth that was in the traditional civil rights organizations left those organizations because they saw the Panther Party as, okay, there goes somebody really trying to do what Malcolm was doing. Let's go over there. But when Stokely and them came over there to the party was working with white organizations. Huey talked about the, you know, my favorite book, I always tell y'all, The Black Panther Speak by Philip S. Boner. I always tell y'all that one of my favorite books on the Panther Party. But when Stokely came into the party, his whole disagreement was with the party working with, not allowing other races to join the organization. Other races wasn't allowed to join the Black Panther Party, but it would help them organize Black Brown Berets, which was a Mexican street gang originally, which was politicized and became a political organization. And like I talked about, the Young Lords Party or the Young Patriots, all these different groups and organizations actually created their, I don't want to say version of the Black Panther Party, because I don't think that's the correct thing to say. But Stokely Carmichael disagreed with that. He basically said essentially what he said. He said that we have to work together. And his whole reason why he failed the way he failed, he said that I just came from an organization that we tried to work with other races of people, and those people, because they had the finances, because they felt that they should be in lead, they actually was guiding and directing those organizations, which was supposed to be for the liberation of Black people. He said, essentially, his argument with Huey was, we need to focus, go internally, focus on being self-determining, self-sufficient, and work on our own things. Huey disagreed with that. Stokely ended up leaving the organization, and Huey actually in the book, The Black Panther Speaks, he said that what Stokely didn't realize is that their organization was usually started with or by whites and funded by whites. That's why they had the conflicts they had in the NAACP and the SNCC and things of that nature. The Black Panther Party had never been started by, led by, or funded by, had the ability to be directed by whites. I can't say whites didn't introduce some of the funding to the party. And because of that, they wouldn't have the same problems and conflicts that Stokely saw in the SNCC organizations or that they had in the NAACP or any of those other organizations. Now, Huey did actually say in the same book, he did say, however, I have to admit that on a certain point, Stokely was right, because it was the white hippies that we worked closely with that brought the free speech, free love, free sex, the weed, drugs, and things like that into the Black Panther Party. So he said this, on a certain level, Stokely was right from that point of view. Now looking at it from another point of view, Malcolm even talked about that when he was speaking on Pan-Africanism. He said that Black people had to come under the umbrella of Pan-Africanism and see themselves as one united people and operate in their own toward their own benefits, the same way the Jews operate toward with each other's benefit in mind. He said this, and he said that only when we have that will we be able to correlate with another group of people. Will we be able to create coalitions? If you're a weak group of people, creating a coalition with a strong group of people, that strong group of people will end up basically dissolving. End up basically overcoming you. You'll be assimilated to a certain degree. I said all that just giving different, because remember we're doing Black August, so I'm just giving the viewpoints from some of our teachers and some of our leaders. Now I personally can see where Fred and them, you and them, I could see where they was coming from this point of view here, because there is actually no way to actually have a true revolution in the true sense of eliminating the established government and actually recreating a brand new government without working with the other people that's going to be in that government, unless you're going to separate from those groups when you create a new government or push those groups out of the society. It's the only way it's going to happen. And those groups have to have some kind of disenfranchisement with their overall government. Huey said, when asked by a publication back in the 60s called A Movement, could white people be revolutionaries? He said, no, they couldn't actually be revolutionaries. He said it was the black person that had to be the revolutionary, because it was the black person that was actually fighting for their freedom and their liberation. He said, now the whites that want to help in this fight will become white mother country radicals. That's what he called them. He said they're white mother country radicals because they're actually rebelling against their own mother country. They are the whites who have made a decision that no matter how much this system benefits them personally, they have to be able to see that the system itself is corrupt and evil, and they have made a decision to get out of their privileged position and stand on the side of humanity with other human beings, and therefore they become the white mother country radical. They rebel against their own mother country. He said that's the only way that could actually happen. But they could not actually be the revolutionaries because they was not actually fighting for their liberation. It was black people that had to fight for their own liberation. But those are just some of the ideas that I wanted to pep into that conversation before we get back to Fred. Before we get back to Fred, well, I'm gonna give you an opportunity to respond to E if you wanted to.
Yeah. Just real quick, I don't disagree with what E is saying. I think the problem that I find is that, to me, we fall into what I call a polarity. That's where it's either all this way or all that way, and I think that's the problem. To me, it is a tactical approach to organize and utilize across the table. It is not the primary objective. It should not take up the majority of my work. It should not take away from the fact that what we should be doing in our communities is rebuilding our culture and our way of life. And I don't see us, in order to rebuild our culture and our way of life, that we have to tone it down in order to work with other groups. And so, to me, I don't see a problem with that being a dual focus. Now, I would say the predominantly amount of our resources, time, and energy does need to go to us building ourselves. But to me, that doesn't mean all or none. I don't think, and I think that's part of the thing, that we allow ourselves to be put in a position where either we're gonna go this way or go that way. And I think that hardline approach, or should I say that extremism of an approach, is what creates isolation. And when you talk about guerrilla warfare, when you talk about isolating yourself, not separating, but isolating, two different things. When you talk about isolating yourself, you make yourself more of an easy target to be eliminated and eradicated on to me, from that standpoint. So that's all I got to say. I don't disagree with what he's saying, and I wouldn't make that the primary focus. And again, when we talk about somebody like Huey P. Newton, in terms of just the amount of time that was spent dealing with the white radicals, and the amount of time that was spent dealing with Hollywood figures and everything that goes along with that I would deem that to be a problem. But I think that's the deal. And keep in mind, y'all, and me down here in California, I see this more than y'all. When we talk about what happened between the US organization and the Black Panther Party, it was a direct move by COINTELPRO to separate the cultural identity of the Black Panther Party from the community organizing of the Black Panther Party. This is what created the East Coast, West Coast division. This is why the Panthers on the East Coast were more culturally on solid ground in terms of the ideology of the party. That also led into what we're talking about with Stokely Carmichael at that time, because of the operation of what COINTELPRO was doing. They effectively destroyed the inner workings of the Black Panther Party, having more of a culturalist perspective and working toward Black power as it applies to that on the West Coast than what you saw throughout other areas of Panther operations in the United States. And because of that, it literally created a fractionalization to the point to where the Panthers' focus was on the community activism and not Black empowerment and Black cultural development. That attack started out early on. And again, that goes back to when we talk about Bunchy Carter, who Bunchy Carter was basically damn near doing almost the same thing that Fred Hampton was doing. And guess what? They wanted to make sure he got assassinated. So again, it's the same thing that we saw. When you had somebody that was able to unify across street tribes, able to unify across class struggle, able to cross beyond the lumpy proletarian and be able to organize, then that person was deemed a threat because they knew how to organize to the point to where they wasn't restricted in terms of their ability to be able to get someone outside of our direct suffering to be able to win them over, to be able to be utilized in the struggle. But at the same time, that don't mean take away from it. So that's all I got.
And at the same time, as you said, that communal aspect was cleaved away, so that what Fred was taking in there was the ability to organize, but not the ability to maintain cohesion within our own community because we had no cultural basis. That cultural basis is everything for any group of people. White folk come into any type of alliance with us with the cultural base. And that's one of the reasons there are so many instances of Black folks trying to work with white folk. I can name you organizations all day long, all of us can, where we've worked with white folk and it has not worked out in our favor. But you can't name a single instance in which the opposite is true. Whether it was Fred Hampton, Huey, or anybody else, it has never been to our benefit to get with them, period. So at one point in time, or in one scenario, if you want to talk about polarity, the polarity has to be that we have unity. There is no in between. You're either free or you're a slave. We either have a cohesiveness within our community or we don't. There's no halfway point for that, bro. There's no break.
What I'm saying is that what we're not seeing is that to me, it seems like we're not recognizing that how warfare works. It is an attack all the way across the board. The same time they attacking us and causing us to kill each other, they also attacking us and killing us that are able to reach across the line. It is not I'm going to only attack them on this side or only attack them on that side. That's
not because
they hit us first and foremost through culture. They did. They hit us and attacked us and destroyed that first when we talk about the Panther Party. They hit that. And we as the Panthers didn't see that attack as for what it was. All the while, now we're watching this other work on this, but not realizing that we got attacked this way first, and that should have been repaired.
Lil Wayne.
Keep going.
Lil Wayne.
I don't get it.
You talk about a charismatic, able to reach across the aisle. He is charismatic. You can't tell me he's not with all of these Peckerwoods and all these Black folks that are Lil Wayne and love his music. Whatever you want to call it. Matter of fact, okay, let's kick Lil Wayne to the side. Let's say Obama. Charismatic? Yes. Yeah. He unified Black folk to vote for him. He unified white folk to vote for him. He unified everybody that needed to vote for him for 2 terms to get him into office. They didn't kill him. They co-opted him. They took his culture away. Even though his name was Obama, supposedly his dad is from Kenya, they took his culture away.
I agree.
But they left in place the ability to unite the people. But they replaced his purpose with their purpose.
I agree.
It's not a matter of somebody being able to reach across and get white folks wired up and shit. Obama did that. But to what end? White people get wired up for the same shit. Oh, we're pissed off. We're pissed off. And this dude is, woo, he's saying some good stuff. He smoked menthols. He shoot basketball. This a real true nigga that he like white people. God damn, we like him. So what?
But that is not at all. That can't compare Obama to what Fred was doing.
No. I'm not comparing it to what he was doing. I'm comparing what you said was the most prominent aspect in terms of dealing with white folk. He appealed to white folk and could galvanize them to get to do what he wanted to do. That's what you said about Fred. He could get white folk on board, reach across the aisle, and move them in a direction that he wanted them to go. Obama did the exact same shit. He moved them in a direction that was pre-programmed that he wanted them to go. So what? Black folk didn't benefit. It's the exact same scenario. He reached across the aisle. These are your words. He reached across the aisle. He galvanized white folks. He moved some radical white folks. They had hope. It was about change. They were finna do something.
To the same degree that you're saying that we didn't benefit, you are dismissing the fact that he was assassinated. To say that is no different than to say Stokely Carmichael, again, moved to the continent and did the work he did, but yet Africa is still just as divided as it was. And he wasn't assassinated. The whole point of what we're saying in that point is...
He was neutralized, whether it's assassinated,
educated, but
that co-opted.
He was... White people, that wasn't. Was that white people?
What?
Was he neutralized because he was working with white people? Or was he neutralized simply because...
Stokely Carmichael?
Yeah.
And Krumel? I mean, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
No, he left. He wasn't exiled in the sense that the cointelpro, hey, you got to go to Africa. He left because of the bullshit.
I'm talking about what he was operating from. All African People's Revolutionary Party. I'm talking about...
I tend to think that he left because he knew, or that he at least felt that this government was going to come after him in some way, form, or fashion.
Absolutely.
I mean, they even named him by name in that COINTELPRO memo.
He was the next target of COINTELPRO. Had he
not, because he was imparting that part that they cleaved away from the organizing. Had Stokely and Hampton, Fred had the charisma and whatnot of Fred and the organizing on the community level and whatnot, and the culture that Stokely was bringing to it at the same time. Had that shit gotten back together, it would have been Malcolm all over again.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. So just leave it right there, and that's exactly what I'm talking about. The two coming together. That's it. Not one over the other.
Exactly, the two coming together. Not the one getting with the white one. That don't make sense. That you still ain't proved your point. They neutralized Obama.
I think you just proved my point.
They neutralized Fred in the '60s the way that they found necessary to neutralize our leadership then. They neutralized them differently now, aka Farrakhan's still alive. So they neutralize. What you like to say? They bring somebody down the eyes of the people before they assassinate them and all of that. So there are different means to affect COINTELPRO when they said prevent the rise of da-da-da-da-da. Wasn't necessarily we got to kill them first.
No, you put somebody
that we take their mind, because they would have loved to have Fred run for president. Because he could galvanize in today's society. Back then, no. But in today's society, all integrated and pluralistic and all this come together shit.
I don't agree that's the path that would have been on.
Fred, I'm not saying he was. I'm saying that personality part that you keep harping on, that is the only thing that you've offered as what it is Fred offered for white folks. That's the only thing that held the Panther Party and white folk together was Fred's personality. You take that personality.
I'm saying that him being charismatic and a strong leader at his age, he was able to do that.
Right, and that was the thing that you said that COINTELPRO, that the feds were on about. The fact that he could galvanize, radicalize, and point white folk in a particular direction.
Not just white folk, all people.
All people, whoever. It don't matter. It's the same thing as Obama.
His emphasis was not on white people. His emphasis was on black people. But
regardless, dude, if you are spending any of your time teaching black folk, which at that point in time, it was a little bit different because we had a little bit of community left. We had a little bit of power, not enough to make the moves I feel like that he was wanting to make or did make, and Hugh and him and all them as far as reaching out to white, brown, and whoever else, whatever groups, that the more time you put in reaching out to them, and that's the cultural aspect of it, reaching out to somebody else rather than building your own. Yes, there's going to be a level of isolation, but sometimes you have to swing at the polar opposites in order to move anything. If you just stand there in the middle and try to inch just a little bit, nothing's going to happen. At some point, you have to make a radical movement in a direction that benefits or is tended to benefit the masses of the people. Organizations like OBU have done way more in what they've done in their isolation than somebody like the NAACP or CORE or any of these other organizations who have attempted to work NAACP advancement of colored, so not just white, but all of them, people. So the fact that at some point we have to stand on our own 2 feet and give an example, if nothing else, to our children to say that black folk can build shit. Because right now, you talk to the average brother or sister anywhere, and they can't tell you, outside of some entrepreneur making coins and shit like that, they have no idea what it is for black folk to build for black folk. Even though for hundreds of thousands of years, that's all the fuck we did. That's all we knew how to do, was black folk build for black folk. That's what we did. But now we can't even conceive of that. So the idea that we reach out with somebody else who has power, remember, white folks got the power, Korean folk got power. So all these other groups of people, whether they're white or whatever color, have a greater level of power. Black folk are on the bottom. And here we are trying to unite with everybody going up. We will get smashed as soon as they decide, okay, just like they always do. This is historic. Just like they always do. Gays and all of them. As soon as they feel like they're somewhere, we in the wind. And we fucked all over again. Sojourner Truth went to talk to white women about women's suffrage. They didn't want her to talk because she a nigga. She like, ain't I a woman too? I mean, what the hell? So even feminists or whatever, when they jump in and want to rah-rah say some shit, they'll go back and sleep with Massa and we'll be right back in the same boat. But Malcolm say, it's integrated for a little while. It's a rainbow for a little while, but eventually they all gone and there you are right back in the ghetto all over again. And it's the same thing. I don't understand. It's the same thing keeps happening. It's the same, it's insanity. It's the definition, psych, of insanity. We keep doing that same shit. They are never, ever, no other group, not even just white folk. Intelligence. This is how war works. Intelligence. You fight with the motherfuckers you roll with. You don't be in the middle of a fight and switch teams. You roll with your group. Asians are gonna roll with Asians. The Vatos gonna roll with the Vatos. And that's the way it is. Who black folk gonna roll with? Can't roll with black folks because black folks ain't rolling with each other. So we're gonna be somebody else's lackey getting pulled along until we figure out, fuck, black people gotta do for black people like every other group of people. And we got some power, then we can say, yo, we bringing, bank accounts with, 7 or whatever figures. We got stocks, we got land, this type of conversation. That's why Malcolm was trying to unite us with Africa, because the Chinese got China on their back. Mexicans got Mexico, got their back. All these other groups got places that got their back. Us and the so-called Indians in this country got no place that's got our back. So we go in there hollering and yelling, basically bitching, because everybody else got somebody that's got their back. We don't. We don't even have Africa, big as it is, to get our back, because we can't even get our shit just together. Fuck everybody else, get our shit. Talk to our backers. Then we can go to the table and say, okay, we're ready. Let's do this. It's the same thing that's happened on an international level with Russia and China going in and doing what they're doing in Africa. Until Africa secures its own self, stop having corrupt leaders in these positions and the people hold them accountable and whatnot, China and Russia, as nice as they may seem, they might be good, it might be honest goodwill that they're putting out there. Probably not. Might be. But until we are in control of our resources in this country, that means in control of ourselves, because really right now, we're our only resource. We have no other fucking resources. So on an international level, until Africa is in control of its own resources, China's going to exploit this time around. Russia's going to exploit the next time around. Then it'll come back around to some other group of people exploiting. Each time we're going to go to them. We're going to sit down and we're going to say, hey, y'all are already in control of our resources, but we want to work together with you. What the fuck is that? That's not proper warfare. That's not even, that's the shit. That's not even acknowledging that you're at war. So yeah, I can't see that as being a viable option for African people in this country. We have nothing. Nothing. The most ragtag piece of shit, white trash motherfucker could come in to a coalition with any black organization in this country and off rip that white boy has more power than that whole organization. Give a fuck what the scenario is. That white boy's got more. Guaranteed. Guaranteed. Simply because we have to remind the world, hey, Black Lives Matter, and that's a problem. When you get to that level, that's a problem. So that's all I'm saying. We have no position to be talking to anybody else. Because if you got no power and you come to me trying to negotiate power, I'm gonna laugh at you. You got nothing I want or need, but I'll use you until I get done.
On that note, I would not challenge you because he absolutely right. It's all about power. But that is different. That is, to me, a different conversation than what we started out at. But in essence,
that's the root of the conversation. You don't make alliances with motherfuckers with more power than you.
Before we get ready to close, I want to read something that came from Chairman Fred. And when we close off, I want y'all just to give me y'all, especially Brother War, I want y'all to give me y'all's idea of Fred's work and what he did for the Panther Party and what he did for the people. But I want to read this breakdown to get the people an understanding of how Fred thought and how he saw things. And in this quick speech, and I'm not going to read the whole speech, just a portion of it. He's kind of talking about Huey, and he's talking about what he learned from Huey. But he said, it was Huey P. Newton who taught us how the people learn. You learn by participation. When Huey P. Newton started out, what did he do? He got a gun and he got Bobby, and Bobby got a gun. They had a problem in the community because people were being run over, kids were being run over at a certain intersection. What did the people do? The people went down to the government to redress their grievances, and the government told them to go to hell. We are not going to put a stoplight down there until we see fit. What did Huey P. Newton do? Did he go out and tell the people about the laws and write letters and try to propagandize them all the time? No. Some of that's good, but the mass of the people don't read. That's what I heard Huey say. They learn through observation and participation. Did he just say this? No. So what did he do? He got him a shotgun. He got Bobby, and he got him a hammer, and he went down to the corner. He gave Bobby the shotgun and told him, if any pig motherfuckers come by, blow his motherfucking brains out. What did he do? He went to the corner and nailed up a stop sign. No more accidents, no more trouble. And then he went back, another situation like that. What did the people do? They looked at it. They observed. They didn't get a chance to participate in it. Next time, what did they do? Same kind of problem came up. The people got their shotguns. They got their 9mm. They got their hammers. How did they learn? They learned by observation and participation. They learned one thing. When there's a fire, you got to around the fire. Huey got a shotgun and everybody got it around him and Bobby. They saw what was going on and they had a chance to participate in it. As the vanguard leader, he taught the people about the power structure. He led the people down the correct road to revolution. What are we doing? And I read that excerpt from the speech for the simple fact that I love when he breaks down that the people learn through observation and participation. You know, it's a lot of times we'll find it extremely difficult to go trying to get a people our read materials. But if you get them correct, he continued to say this in the speech, if you get them correct activity to observe and eventually to participate in, then you'll have a greater effect over teaching the people the ideas that you're trying to give them. Then later, the people will want to read your information if they want to actually develop their understanding of the philosophies and the theories that they're actually putting into practice. But that's why I read that speech of that section from Chairman Fred. So, Brother Wall, I want to ask you, in your opinion, what do you think was Chairman Fred's contribution to not only the Black Panther Party, but the Black Liberation Front?
I say it goes back to being able to emphasize the importance of political ideology and being able to articulate, learn, and get a person to entrench themselves in the process of the work for the people. Fred, the way he organized, the way he operated, the way he carried himself it's like, I'm living a life of a revolutionary. And he even said that you can kill a revolutionary, but you can't kill the revolution. And his position was working to get the people to realize how important it was for us to all live that lifestyle going into this for this. I would say I call that living on intent. The position is we're about the people, for the people, and we're going to organize around that. And to me, his contribution on that note was the fact that he was able to articulate and break things down to a position to where everybody was able to extract something from that. So it's not just, okay, yeah, Huey through observation and participation, but a lot of times the people don't really connect the dots as to what it is they're picking up on and learning and how that application applies. That's some of the same things that we built upon, I would say, nowadays in terms of our training structure that we teach to new comrades coming in, is what I call the application of warfare. It's one thing to talk about it or talk about what a weapon is, but if you don't recognize the applications of that, that's where the rubber meets the road, is being able to see all the various applications and how this one object can be used in many fashions as many types of tools. And to me, when I think of Fred, I think of somebody who was able to articulate the various ways in which a tool can be utilized.
True indeed. I think Fred kind of embodies the ideal of, because you just put it out to your chapter a couple of months ago, a revolutionary is, and you were telling me that you told them that they need to post it up in their homes so they can see it on the record. And one of the things that it said that a revolutionary is a revolutionary has to be an above average orator. They have to be able to express their ideals. They have to be able to manifest those thoughts into reality so that people comprehend and understand it. Marcus Garvey said that in the Message to the People. He got a chapter on just, it's called elocution, on just oratory skills. So those things are extremely important because we got to be able to convey the proper ideas to the people.